Yep. Nope. Yep.
Agoo! It's been a long time on this
Maame.
show. Oh, that's so great. Today we are bringing to you Agoo to your doorstep. So, whoever is watching now, please share on Facebook. We are also streaming live on YouTube. Kindly watch and then send your comments. Our conversation today is going to be powerful since we are all here in Japan. We will all need to listen to this conversation because one way or the other you might have interest somewhere. Okay. All right, so before we move on to our program, I have some few adverts here. So if you're looking for one of the best English conversation in Japan, locate Joyful English Conversation School. Okay, so they are located at Nodashi, Shimizu. Okay, in Chiba. That's the first location at Nodashi, Shimizu. So you can contact them on 047 100 0032. I get it again 047 100 0032. And then they also have another branch at Kashiwashi, Matuba, Kashiwa. So if you go to Kashiwa, you can also contact them on 047 151 5909. So they operate from Mondays to Saturday, and they have after school classes also, which start at 3:30 p.m. to 10 p.m. So if you're looking for a place for your kids to go study English, please contact these numbers. You can call Mr. Kobayashi and he's going to answer you. He speaks English and Japanese, so you don't have any problem when it comes to language. Okay, and also we have African Braids by Ethel. If you want to look good, like with both gents and ladies, yes, contact African Braids by Ethel. So when you go to IG, Instagram, you can search for her at African Braids by Ethel, and on Facebook the same name, African Braids by Ethel. Okay, so she's located in Fusa, Tokyo. You can contact her on 080 9446 6845. Come and have your hair fixed by the hair god. Yes. So, African Braids by Ethel will be waiting for you. You can just slide into her DMs on Facebook, make an appointment, and she's going to attend to you. African Braids by Ethel. Look good. Okay, so there is also one announcement that's a 1 week celebration of Openi Emmanuel Akono Asante, popularly known as Odikro Akono Asante. And the date is on October 3rd, which is on Sunday, and the time is 1 p.m. at the Ankobai Royal Family House. Yes, the Ankobai Royal Family House. Ankobia. Okay, all right. So the name is Ankobia Royal Family House, and the time is 1 p.m. And don't forget the date. It's on the 3rd of October, which is just tomorrow. Okay, so now we have our guest on the show, and I know our guest has been on the show before, but today's topic it's different, something else, and I can't wait to bring him on board, like to hear what he has for us. There are lots that we need to know. So since we have somebody in the Japanese government relating with politics and other stuff, I think is good for us because it seems language is a barrier for so many of us, especially me. So if I have someone who speaks English and also knows more about the Japanese politics, I think I'm glad to have this kind of person on my show. Welcome, Doctor, on Agoo.
Amara, thank you very much for having me again. It's
You're
been
welcome.
about 6 weeks since
Yeah,
we
exactly.
last spoke, but thank you.
Yes. Okay, so to remind our viewers, I want you to like let's have a recap of what we had 6 weeks ago. Yes, I think about your business and then what you do, so that we can continue from where we want to start today.
Very good, thank you. So my name is Robert Eldridge. I'm based in the Osaka area. Um, I specialize in Japanese politics, uh, particularly post-war Japanese politics and Japan's foreign policy. Uh, I'm been in Japan for 31 years. I've been following Japanese politics for 31 years, and I've been pretty accurate in my assessments over the years. And I hope to provide some of those insights to you today as we talk about the recent ruling party presidential election and what that means starting actually next week as they move forward to choose a new prime minister.
I thought they already chose a prime minister. Not yet.
Officially, not yet, uh,
Okay.
and we can talk about that a little bit later. What the difference is.
Okay. All right. All right. Thank you so much for
You're
the
welcome.
recap. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
let's dive into today's topic about the
Mm-hmm.
Japanese politics, connected with your business, right? So, how is your business related with the Japanese politics? Can you please let us know?
Great, thank you. So, a little bit more about my background. So, I was in academia for many, many years and taught Japanese politics uh, to Japanese students, international students. We had officials from foreign governments and foreign countries. Uh, I taught many government officials from African nations, as well as other countries around the world, about what's going on in Japan. Uh, Subsequently, I worked for the US government in the US Department of Defense as the political advisor about Japan affairs for the United States Marine Corps. Um, and that's why I won't be the god of hair or as you were introducing before. Um, but I like to keep my hair short, but technically it's not a Marine Corps thing. I just like it short. Um,
Okay.
but if I did, I would certainly use Ethel's services.
Sure,
So
sure. You should. You should.
yeah,
Yes.
thank you.
So make it look
Um,
good. Mm.
I'm sure. So and then after serving in government, I moved back into the research field, and then earlier this year, this summer, I established with a Japanese friend of mine who worked in the Japanese foreign ministry, and she worked for think tanks and politicians in Japan. We formed a company called uh, Diplomatic Support Services, and the company is meant to fill a void with foreign embassies that are located in Japan, specifically in the Tokyo area, where they may have difficulty with um, deeper or more penetrating analysis about what's going on in Japan, either in politics or security matters or economics or education policy or foreign policy, and we have either among ourselves or among our contacts, the ability to provide, I think, very deep analysis about these matters. And then we also provide introductions for individuals or groups or organizations that are from a foreign nation or her or his staff may need here in Japan, and a number of other services. So monitoring Japanese politics is crucial for our company, Diplomatic Support Services. And to do that, I maintain regular contacts with many individuals and politicians and journalists and basically everybody who's kind of watching what's going on in Japanese affairs or that are participating in it. And I also travel to Tokyo on a weekly basis to meet with those individuals or to get eyes on what the situation is, and maybe if I have a theory or an idea, and I may test it out on people and see what they think about it. We also do a lot of proposals and policy suggestions, hoping that Japan's foreign relations with these other countries will improve and become better.
Okay. All right. That's so interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So let me ask. There's been some election recently, but
Hmm.
I don't really know much about the Japanese elections. We know,
Hmm.
let's say back in Africa, there are so many campaigns, so many noise about politics, election, but I'm here in Japan and I've not seen anything like that. But I heard they have a new prime minister now. How did they do that?
Okay, yeah, that's a great question. So technically, right now, and we're doing this show on October 2nd, Saturday. So technically, right now, they don't have a new prime minister. They
Okay.
have the current prime minister, Mr. Suga Yoshihide. So Suga, um, he'll serve until Monday next week.
Okay.
So in other words, two
Okay.
days from now, technically, although people are already getting ready for the next administration. So what they had recently, this past Wednesday, September 29th, was the election for the party leader of the ruling party. And there are actually two ruling parties. One is the larger Liberal Democratic Party, and the second smaller coalition party is called Kolmeito, and it means Clean Government Party. And they've been partners, coalition partners, uh, for roughly 20 years, a little more than 20 years. Um, but the main event, the main issue was the election of the larger ruling party, the Liberal Democratic Party. And in that election, which took place over a very short time, it was roughly 10 days or so in the middle to end of September, eventually there were just four candidates. It started off a little bit more close to around 9 or 10, um, but it became apparent that some people didn't have the support within the party or maybe around the country, um, or there were some, deals that were made within the party about this person would run this time and this person wouldn't run. So eventually there were four candidates, and two were males and two were females.
Yes.
It's unusual to have, uh, a female running uh, in Japanese politics to this
But when
level.
I saw that,
Uh,
I was so happy. I thought
mhm.
probably they'll give the females some chance to also rule.
right, and which is long overdue. Um, when Prime Minister Abe, who was the Prime Minister one removed, uh, who served from 2012 to last year, 2020, the longest serving Prime Minister in Japanese history, um, I thought he was just going to serve one term, which is 4 years, and then he was going to um, turn it over to a female. And he was grooming several females, and I thought he was going to let them compete and and build up their political credentials, and then the woman who appeared to be the strongest, I thought he was going to turn the reins over to her. He ended up running or staying in office much longer than initially anticipated. But his candidate, the one he most wanted, ran this time, and her name was Takaichi Sanae. So Takaichi Sanae. And she ended up coming in third place. She was my personally my preferred candidate for a number of reasons. But I'm not Japanese, and I don't belong to the ruling party. So technically, I don't have any
You
right
don't
to
have any
say anything
power.
about it. Right.
Yeah.
But as an analyst, I was kind of hoping for her. But I don't let my personal views interfere with my judgment about the situation. The person I thought was going to win uh, actually won. So to clarify, the person I was hoping would win didn't win, and the person that I thought would win won, and
One.
that's
Okay.
Mr. Kishida Fumio. And uh, and he, for me, and probably for many people, was a second choice. But I think he'll be a good prime minister. He'll be a
Why?
safe prime. So um, he has he has fairly wide backing from many people within the party. He's very cautious and careful, so he won't do too many abrupt things. He comes from a long tradition of factions within the party, so it's the middle faction of the ruling party. So I should probably explain that a little bit. So the ruling Liberal Democratic Party came into office originally in 1955, and they've been out of office uh, essentially maybe four of the past 65 years. So basically, they've served most of the time. And they started off as two different factions, and then they grew, but they had come together under one umbrella known as the Liberal Democratic
Yeah.
Party. Today, there are seven factions making up the LDP, and each faction is headed by a key politician, and generally they have a certain political philosophy within the larger Liberal Democratic Party umbrella. And maybe to help readers understand about it, there's a book that I wrote, or I translated, called Japan's Backroom
Backroom
Politics.
politics.
And the
Wow.
subtitle is Factions in a Multi-Party Age. And
Wow.
this book was written by a gentleman by the name of Watanabe Tsuneo. And there are two famous Watanabe Tsuneos in Japan. One is a younger specialist on the United States, and the other one is an older president of a newspaper company called the Yomiuri newspaper. And it's that gentleman, the president of the Yomiuri newspaper, who wrote this book. And he was a political reporter earlier in his career, and he was the first one to really document the existence of the factions within the ruling party. So when somebody runs for the presidency of the party, they need to have as many factions supporting his or her candidacy. And in this election, it wasn't only the party representatives in the Diet, in the parliament, but it was also the party membership around the country that was voting. In other countries, for elections, maybe the ordinary citizen would vote, but this is an intra-party election. So the average voter doesn't vote unless he or she is a member of the political party. But because of the ruling party, and because the president of that party will almost always be chosen as prime minister when the parliament meets next, which is next week, the country has an interest in who the leader of this party is.
This is Jeffrey Radio.
So the other two candidates, there was another man by the name of Kono Taro, and then another female by the name of Noda Seiko. Noda Seiko got the least amount of votes, and then Mr. Kono got the second largest amount of votes, but because they didn't have a majority, either person didn't have a majority, the two top winners had to compete in a follow-on election. And that's when there's a reshuffling of the votes, and people that once supported Noda Seiko or once supported Ms. Takaichi would then recast their ballots for one of the two finalists. And in this case, Kishida won an overwhelming majority. So Mr. Kishida was named the president of the party. Yesterday, Friday, he officially named the leadership of the party, because you can't rule a party by yourself. You're going to need a good team. And he chose a good team from the different factions. So that allows for balance in the in the party. If it's all one faction, then all the other factions are going to fight it. But when you choose people from different groups, you give them ownership in ruling the party, and it becomes more stable usually.
Wow. Okay. All right. So I wanted to ask you a question about what you just said. But before that, for the sake of our viewers outside Japan, I want to know how many parties do we have, political parties do we have here in Japan?
Great question. Let me ask you, Nania, how many do you think there are?
Seriously, I don't see anything going on. I think, to me personally, I thought there was none. Yes, they just
Because it's very
appoint
stable, right?
and then they vote. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
so
Yeah,
that's
there's an
that's what I
appearance
know.
that many Japanese are disinterested in politics.
Yeah,
But that's not necessarily true, or not always the case. They're not as loud usually as, like, for
yeah,
example, people in the United States.
sure.
So the systems are different. Japan's a parliamentary system, and the U.S., for example, is a presidential system. And depending on the country, abroad, it's going to be a little bit different. But um, the Japanese system this time, I thought, was very well run. It was it's a short election. They focused a lot on the policy, and usually it's backroom deals, or historically particularly, and that's why the name of the book is Backroom Politics.
Backroom politics.
Yeah, and so, but this time is much more open, and it was intensely policy driven. So there were a lot of press conferences, discussing the policies, discussions and debates where all four of the main candidates were talking. And all in all, it was very civil. They didn't try to destroy the other candidates. Whereas, like an American presidential primary, it's a year and a half long. There are many, many candidates. They criticize one another. They destroy one another. It's not really policy oriented. It costs a lot of money. Here, it's short, polite, professional, policy oriented, and overtly, there doesn't appear to be much money used. I don't know if there's any behind the scenes deals. So the appearance is that it's it's very stable. One of the reasons for that is the opposition parties are so quiet right now in Japan. And overall, there are 9 political parties in Japan.
Wow.
Yes.
9.
The 9. However, the opposition parties have gotten very, very weak over the past 8 years, 9 years. 10 years ago, they were still in power, a coalition of the opposition parties. But they were so ineffective in governing that the voters in the next election, which was 2012, went back to the old ruling party, which is today's Liberal Democratic Party. And the voters devastated the opposition parties because they had mishandled things. So their numbers are large as the number of parties, but their influence is very few. So on the far left, they have a communist party, they have a socialist party, they have some centrist or center-left parties, they have some center-right parties, and they have sort of a rightist party. And then they have some other parties that aren't represented at the national level, about half a dozen around the country that are more regional or local parties. But officially right now, there are 9 political parties, 2 that are ruling and 7 that are opposition.
Wow. Wow.
And I tend to sympathize or support the ruling party, but I also like to be independent, and I don't give the ruling party my full blessing or support because you need a healthy opposition to keep a democracy functioning. Radio. And so it's important that the opposition be good and strong too. And it's unfortunate that they're not good and strong, because what will happen is if the LDP, the ruling party, doesn't have competition, it won't get good. And it's just like in anything, if it's sports or, artists or whatever, if you're always told you're the best, you're not going to try to improve at all.
Exactly.
And businesses too. If you don't have any competition, your customer service is going to be really bad.
Okay, so I got a question for you on Facebook from Yaya Seidu. Sorry if I can't pronounce your name well. He says, Dr. Robert, kindly tell us how many parties Japanese have. But I think he already said that. 9 political parties.
Yeah, so 2 ruling and 7 opposition.
7 in opposition. Okay.
Yeah.
He also adds
however,
okay.
I was just going to add that the opposition parties sometimes support the ruling party's legislation. So it's not a 100% division. If it's a good bill, it'll get supported.
All right. Okay, so he also asks, please can he repeat what he just said regarding the vote for party leadership, please?
hmm So there were four candidates in the election for party president was held on September 29th. Um, if one of the candidates got a full majority, then he or she would have been chosen. But because they didn't get a full majority, they had to do a runoff election. And in that
Okay.
time, um, in the runoff election, the winner was Mr. Kishida. And the reason that he won was because the two losing candidates, their their supporters would would vote again, cast their ballots again, and in this case, instead of supporting their first candidate, they supported Mr. Kishi.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's a runoff election, and
Yeah.
to do that in the first round, you support the candidate you won, but in the second round, um, you basically would go with the candidate that your group wanted to support. And there was a deal made between Kishida's faction and Takaichi's faction that whoever came out ahead, the other faction would support that person.
Okay. All right. So there's a question that says, does the citizen also have a role to play in the Japanese election? What role do they have to play?
In this party election, not really, unless they are a party member, and you can become a party member by signing up and paying dues. Uh, but the the LDP, the ruling party, and the opposition party know that public opinion is also very important. So
Exactly.
if everything was done inside, in the back room, whoever emerged as party president would have trouble governing because the decision wasn't transparent and their message didn't have any appeal for the general public. So the LDP, as well as the opposition parties, when they're choosing their party leader, they do a lot of press conferences and talk to the public, even though the public doesn't have a direct
Okay.
say or vote. But
Okay.
public opinion's important.
Okay.
But
That
in
really
the
makes sense.
right in the future for next month, the public's going to have a role, and I can explain that later.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Wow, I see. Okay, so the Japanese name again, the one who will be taking over from Suga.
Yes, he's already taken over from for Suga as party
Okay.
president. It's
Okay.
Kishida
Kishida.
Fumio. Yes,
Okay.
Kishida
Okay.
Fumio. And
Okay.
everybody who's watching this or listening to this or either in Japan or outside of Japan has seen his face before
Yeah.
because he was the foreign minister of Japan for 5 years. And so he's met with all the international leaders around the world, including the leader of your country, who's ever listening. So,
Then
for example,
I hope he has
mhm,
good things for foreigners. Yeah. Okay, so
I think,
did he
yeah,
put
I think he is.
anything in place, like things to do before
So,
emerging?
so he's announced some policies, and there's a book that he published a few weeks ago, and it's called the Kishida Vision.
Okay.
And I offered his office to translate it into English if he's interested in getting his message out to a non-Japanese audience. but I'll just have to wait to hear back. The Japanese aren't very good at public affairs and public relations as far as getting the message out
Yeah.
in this way, unfortunately. Um, but he has his ideas, and people chose him to be the party president, so he will uh, try to have the party follow his ideas. But the way Japanese politics work is that it's a consensus based approach. It's not a top down approach. So
Yeah.
he'll
Okay.
have to he'll have to develop a consensus within the party, and because it's the ruling party, they will then take those ideas to the parliament and try to develop the bills, the legislation to make that happen. Um, and he needs a good team to do that. And so the person who um, one of the people who ran in the election against him, but ended up supporting him, Miss Takaichi, she's in charge of the Policy Affairs Council for the LDP now. And she was extremely well liked and respected because she had very good policy ideas. And that's very good news for, for people that supported her, because some of her policy ideas, will likely get introduced. Um, so, uh, but it's one party can't do everything. It needs, all the parties to work together in that. But he won't be able to get anything done right away because something big is going to be happening.
Exactly.
Yeah. And do you know what that big thing is?
Oh,
Maybe
listen,
the
tell me.
listeners do. Yeah.
Okay, so
So,
listeners, if you know what that big thing is, please bring your comments into the comment section. Okay. All right. So we got a message from Edward Amanfo. He says, "Great job, Dr. Eldridge, for your in-depth analytical work on Japanese politics. I have been an enthusiastic fan of your book titled The Japanese Ground Self-Defense Force.
thank you.
Oh, search
Thank you.
for legitimacy. It is a positive coincidence to watch you on this platform today." From Dr. Smart Edward Amanfo.
Wow. Thank you very much, sir.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because he likes the book on the self-defense forces, I'd like to let him know that there's going to be an article in the Japan Times, probably around October 14th, about the self-defense forces and disaster relief. Because October 14th, 1951, there was a major disaster in which the self-defense forces responded, and it became
This is Jaffa
basically
Radio.
it became basically the start of their disaster relief operations.
Wow. Okay, so there's a question here for you. It says,
Hmm.
"Please, why can't the prime ministers rule for long recently? Is it a kind of pressure, or they don't perform well, or what? Is it COVID-19 pressure, or like
Hmm.
this comes and goes, this comes and goes? What's the problem?"
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's referring to Mr. Suga's relatively
Yeah,
short time in
very
office.
short.
So he served for slightly more than a year. He was inaugurated, I think, on September 16th last year,
Yeah.
so a year and 2 weeks. Um, Prime Minister Abe, as I mentioned before, served 8 years, almost 8 years straight. And but before him, though, there was many, many prime ministers in rapid succession.
Mm.
So if you go back to 2005, or I'm sorry, 2006, uh, Mr. Abe served one time in office for 1 year. His predecessor served for 5 full years, and five was kind of like was very much on the longer side, and it was one of the longer in post-war history. Um, and then Abe served. Uh, he didn't do that well. He had a very ambitious agenda, but the opposition parties, uh, their influence was growing rapidly, and his party lost in the uh, upper house election, and so it made a divided parliament. So they had the power in the lower house, but the upper house was with the opposition party, and so it became very difficult under divided rule like that. Um, when Abe was chosen first in 2006, I was strongly against that because there was a natural order that was supposed to happen, and Abe jumped ahead of everyone because he was so popular. But he didn't have any experience. He was just outspoken, young, handsome, popular, but not at that time qualified or competent. I do think he's one of Japan's greatest politicians now, but he wasn't. He wasn't in 2006, and so after 1 year, he failed. The person who was supposed to come first came into office. He failed after 1 year. The current finance minister, Mr. Aso, then came in. He failed after 1 year. And the general public, the voters, were so frustrated with the corruption and the incompetence of the ruling party that they voted the ruling party out in August of 2009. And I predicted that back in 2005. And I was told I was crazy because the ruling party will always be the ruling party. But I come from a country where there's rapid turnover of power every 8 years. So I predicted the 2009 turnover. But that party, the Democratic Party of Japan, ruled horribly. And so they had 3 prime ministers in 3 years. So between 2006 and 2012, there were 6 prime ministers in 6 years. And so years ago, there was also rapid turnover, maybe 1 year, a few months, 2 years. But 2 years was the norm for a long, long time. Abe broke that. But Suga, in my opinion, should never have been prime minister. There were other candidates out there, but he was the safe bet, and he had experience as the chief cabinet secretary for 8 years, so he knew what was going on in the government. But he wasn't prime ministerial. He wasn't presidential. He was a good, subordinate or good deputy, but he wasn't somebody to be really the face of Japan. So, and I knew him as chief cabinet secretary, and I wasn't very impressed with him. I think he's probably a good man and a decent man, a nice man, but I don't think he was the right person at this time.
Okay. Oh, that's wonderful. You seem to have so much interest and you know too much about the Japanese politics. But before that question, I want to ask this question from our viewers. From Yaya Seidu, he says, Dr. Robert, does the former prime ministers have a role to play in Japanese politics?
That's a great question too. But Nana, as your comment that you know, I know
You
too
know too
much.
much.
I realized I realized this time I really don't know that much, and it
You
became
think so?
frustrating. It became frustrating uh, this week to kind of not guess or get everything correct, and to hear some inside information that I wasn't aware of. And so I think this time I was very humbled in how much I didn't know. But with that said, um, the role of the former prime ministers, that's a great question. In many countries, he or she would, retire from politics. But in Japan, the prime minister uh, always comes from the lower house,
Okay.
and and that's called the House of Representatives. They usually don't lose their seat or give up their seat. And so uh, once they finish as prime minister, they stay they stay back in the House of Representatives, and they basically keep their constituency seat afterwards as well. Um, One prime minister, Hatayama, eventually decided to retire shortly after his time in government. Um, and in some cases, the former prime minister is called back into service again in the cabinet, or has become prime minister again. So Mr. Abe was an example of somebody who became prime minister again after a break. Um, in 1948, a, a prime minister who had served in 1946, 47 came back into power, and then he served again for 6 years. So that's happened. And then a prime minister who's come back to serve in another position. Um, One example would be Prime Minister Miyazawa, who died in 2007. But he came back as finance minister in the late 1990s. Prime Minister Hashimoto, who served from 1996 to 1998, he came back in another position for, I think, for government reform, um, and maybe finance minister. And Prime Minister Aso has come back as deputy prime minister and as finance minister.
Mm.
So so they're not killed off, they're not arrested, they're not retired. They basically keep their seats in parliament, and then
Okay.
should they choose to, they come back into it.
Oh, wow, that's interesting. Mr. Yaya, I hope your question was answered. So there's this question from Clement SL says, please, is there any member of parliament who speaks on behalf of foreigners in Japan?
Mm. Um, yeah, that will depend on the sort of like the angle of the question. So, for example, um, would it like foreigners who live in that person's constituency? Um, I believe they would take up issues if they felt it was legitimate and of concern. Um, Generally, the opposition parties, particularly the leftist opposition parties, are are very sympathetic to the situation of foreigners in Japan, particularly in the human rights arena or area, uh, and matters like that. Um, I'm working on a book right now, and it concerns a politician who has very close ties with a foreign country, and he's very interested in the issues of that country's um, nationals or citizens, as well as the people of that faith, that religious faith. So he works on their behalf. Um, so generally, like at a more local level, it'll be the local politicians or the local government that ideally should be handling foreigners' issues in Japan. But um, if it's an issue that concerns a lot of people, it's a a general issue, not a specific issue, then there's a chance it could be taken up at a higher level. Um, there have been foreigners who naturalized, who took Japanese citizenship, who then served in parliament. There was a gentleman by the name of Marute Tsurunen, I believe from Kanagawa Prefecture, who was originally from either Northern Europe or Holland. I forget which country. Probably Norway, maybe. But who, as a Japanese citizen now, he was able to run in the 1990s and I think served 2 or 3 terms. I myself never met him, but there was an example like that. Yeah, I'm not sure if I fully answered the question, but ideally they should be, concerned about, all the residents
Yeah.
that, live in Japan, regardless of the citizenship. But they will, you know, they'll be more interested in their own Japanese citizens' issues than they
Exactly.
would be in, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So,
Can
Clement, I
I
hope
can I
your question
follow?
was answered. Okay.
Yeah, maybe if I could follow on that a little bit about that might lead to a question about uh, should non-Japanese have the right to vote in Japan?
Yeah.
And in my case, I don't I don't want the right to vote in Japan, and I don't really believe in the right to vote because my loyalty is to my own country, the United States. Um, and uh, I understand the idea of having um, uh, foreign residents being able to, after meeting certain conditions, maybe to be able to vote in a local election. I can understand that idea, but I'm also against that idea because what happens is Japanese politics are a pyramid, and if if let's say foreigners are able to influence uh, representation at a very local level, when that person's in office, he or she influences at the next level, which is the prefecture level,
Mm.
and then they can basically influence at the national level. Because a national politician to get elected, they need the support of the prefecture, and for people that live in Tokyo, the metropolitan area, um, who need the support of the politicians at the local level. And so, kind of like a game of Go, you can flip, or Othello, you can flip the colors uh, easily if if you get the support at this level to this level to this level. And if that's the case, foreigners whose loyalty may not be to Japan being able to vote in Japan can theoretically influence at the national level. And so, uh, I don't think that's good for, the host country. So
Yeah.
I'm not a proponent of of um, of foreigners having the right to vote. I think for the most part, issues can be resolved locally. And if they're not resolved locally, you have a court option or your embassy option or maybe
Yeah.
some other options.
Yeah. Okay. So we have so many questions here for you, but looking at our time, we have like 1 minute to go. Just a minute. We have so many questions here for you. So many questions. I
If I
don't know
could just
which one to
allude
go
to,
first.
yeah, maybe I could just tell you, I was mentioning a big event this month, and that's going to be the election, the general election for the
Okay.
lower house. And the lower house serves a 4-year term unless it's dissolved. And this in October they're gonna call for elections, and
Okay.
the elections themselves will be held in November, but it starts in October. So everybody's going to see Japanese politics in action.
Okay. Okay. So, where do we get your books? How do we get your books?
I well, you can go to my homepage. It's robertdeldridge.com, or uh, or Amazon, for example, and type in Robert D. Eldridge, and
Robert
there's
D.
about maybe
Eldridge.
yes, and there's probably about maybe 30 or 40 books on Amazon
Oh,
that you can
okay.
get. Yeah.
All right. All right. So, there's this viewer is asking me to borrow the next program's time.
I'd
Please
be
let me
happy
ask
to.
permission from my producers. Please, can
10
I?
minutes. 10 minutes.
Okay, so my producers have given me 10 minutes. And then I hope
Okay.
you are okay with that, Doctor.
I'm very okay with that to
Okay,
talk to you.
so he asked, Dr. Robert, please can you educate us on the role of the Chief Cabinet Secretary?
Wow. Oh, that's a great question. Thank you. So, um, in Japanese, it's called Kambo Chokan, and Chokan means director or head, and Kambo means secretariat. And so the Kambo Chokan is the head of the secretariat, in this case, the cabinet secretariat that helps run the prime minister's office, and he or she is somebody usually that is very close to the prime minister or very trusted by the prime minister, and almost always is a current elected official. So in other words, a politician, either in the lower house or the upper house. And in Japan, the lower house is more powerful. Um, but there may be a very powerful figure in the upper house that the prime minister wants to bring in. And a prime minister will make many, many calculations about who they want in the cabinet. It might be a factional balance. It might be a personal obligation. It might be a policy preference. It might be a need to deal with an issue that the country's facing, and they need to have that person like there to be able to coordinate. It may be a way to promote that person in the future, to give him or her experience in that. So the Kambo Chokan, the chief cabinet secretary, is basically like the alter ego of the prime minister. He or she should be able to speak for the prime minister in full confidence. And it's like in other countries, you may have a press spokesman or woman, or a chief of staff. So, for example, in the United States, some of you would have seen there's a woman named Jen Psaki, who's got very bright red hair, who's the White House spokeswoman, but she's not the chief of staff. The president, the U.S. president, has a chief of staff who runs the White House. In Japan, they don't have that. They have a press spokesperson and a chief of staff in the same body, in the same person. So that's what a chief cabinet secretary does. He'll run meetings on behalf of the prime minister. Everybody goes to him. He's like the nerve center at the bottom of the brain. Everything goes through him or her to run the government. But that doesn't mean the prime minister is hands off and indifferent, he's going to be very involved in stuff too, getting his own information, his own thinking. But the chief cabinet secretary is a very important position.
Okay. So I'm taking the last question. I think doctor said something about this, but I think you have to summarize this little for him. He says,
Hmm.
please educate us on how the Japanese parliament or house are chosen or elected.
Hmm. So currently there are 710 members in both houses.